that reason, there's another name for Archangel Michael, which is that Michael is the cosmopolitan spirit. Cosmopolitan spirit basically meaning that this is a being that is at home in every tradition. So sometimes we think of, well, the traditions that talk about Archangel Michael are essentially the three Western monotheistic traditions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam. But in fact, the being of Michael, potentially under other names and other symbology, exist in traditions all over the world. So for example, you can find in the expressions of Manjushri in the Tibetan tradition, things that are clearly a description of the Michaelic being, but with slightly adjusted symbology. So this then leads to the whole thing about when we understand Archangel Michael, the imagery that we have of Archangel Michael as a young blonde man wearing armor and wings and these types of things is a type of clothing given on the astral by people in the West to try to get some densification of a non-physical reality.
Sure.
And to access it. But of course, Archangel Michael is not actually a young blonde man in a suit of armor. This is a non-physical being of a very vast level. And so a being that may be represented that way in the Western tradition may be represented very differently in the East, may be represented as a being floating on a cloud that is connecting to a particular energy center above a person's head in a column of energy. When you look at a Nepalese Tonka painting, there are different types of imagery that's associated with the being. So we don't want to get too caught up with any type of anthropomorphization of non-physical realities and think that that's the way they actually are.
So one thing that, you know, and again, this is just me looking at the images and trying to understand, again, as I mentioned, I don't have this kind of angelic understanding to a deeper level, and I haven't had a direct encounter with Archangel Michael, so I have no personal gnosis of this. This is also what's spurring my curiosity. The sword.
Yeah.
The sword implies to me the sword of discernment, you know, that which discerns the good, the true, and the beautiful, value from anti-value, and this kind of clarity, and also this warrior element of that. But I haven't heard you talk about that particular aspect of Michael. So what is that actually a true representation of this kind of warrior element to this spirit as well, this kind of fierceness?
And absolutely, and that is connected to the solar power. One of the most powerful spiritual experiences I ever had many, many years ago was in consciousness going through the 7 heavenly halls journey. Before I knew that that existed, at this time I hadn't found any references to it. It was just a direct experience of going through the 7 heavenly halls, the spiritual aspect of the planetary spheres, and passing through the sphere of the sun. And the sphere of the sun had the greatest impact on me. That when you are passing through the sphere of the sun, it's hard to express it in terms of our normal physical life and how much we're actually weighed down by our physicality, the physical body, all of the conditions of physical life that are on us. If you're a pure being of energy and you're passing through a world of light and fire, which is the sun, then your being is light and fire. So in a sense, Archangel Michael's basic nature is that of light and fire. And so they always say that his sword is a flaming sword. Now, again, we don't want to get caught up with that intellectually. It has to get, we would use a Rosicrucian term, we dissolve that outer intellectual idea into a direct, visceral, spiritual experience of connecting to that being and what that power is. So when we connect to the influence of Archangel Michael, which is the power of the sun itself, we have an unbelievable awakening and activation of energy and spiritual potential inside of us, where there's nothing weighing us down. None of the limitations of the physical body, none of the limitations of our different karmic neuroses or things of that kind. We become a being of pure light and fire, and we're filled with a type of spiritual enthusiasm and a feeling of all the potential for all the things that we could do, both in our own evolution and in service to others. And so this is then connected to what we have with the imagery of Michael's sword, this flaming sword So on the one side, this is something that allows us to take action in the world. And if we see something that is unjust, something of darkness, then the flaming sword is what's going to cut through it and is going to illuminate it. It'll be linked to powers of discernment. So Mikael and the powers of the sun are connected to the ability of the human mind to be expanded into a state where we can directly perceive non-physical realities and the true essential nature of a person, a place, a thing, any situation, and what its core nature actually is. It's a type of mental sword at one level to cut through things and see what is actually right in front of us. Now,